Okay, we're back. Hi, everybody. Let's see. Unless you guys are sitting there in your underwear, we'd like for you to turn your camera on so we can. I can tell if I'm boring you to death, or if you're excited, or if you have any questions and look puzzled. And just, I like to see faces when I teach. Hi. Okay, so there were a few questions over the break. Kathy?
Yes. What kind of paint or ink do you use for the brilliant colors such as the cat's eyes or the red in the bird?
Okay, what kind of colors do I use? I use ampersand ink. It comes in 6 different colors. Well, it comes in a pack that has 6 different colors. There's a light green, there's a blue, there's a yellow. This is just my little carrying case so they don't spill and I can grab them quickly. There's a red, a black, and a brown. They come with a little color chart of how to mix them. If you use them straight from the bottle, they're very, very, very intense, and they might not be what you expect them to be. For example, here's red. That's not red to me, that's kind of like pink. But if you mix just a little tiny yellow, working with these ampersand inks is just a little getting used to how the colors mix, like anything else. If you put a little yellow in it, you'll get a little brighter red. The more white you have scratched out, the brighter the color is going to be on your board. There we go. Zooming in, zooming in. And the inks, they dry pretty quickly, so you want to keep washing off your brush. But you can pick them up just very quickly too before they're dry.
I also have a question. When is it added and how?
It's added with a brush. It's added, well, first when you first do your first piece, when you have to decide right off the bat if it's going to be black and white or if it's going to be color. So that's kind of a decision you make at the beginning. And if you're going to do color, if you're doing an animal, you're going to be wanting to apply a layer of color and then doing some scratching and let that dry, and apply another layer of color and do a little scratching after that's dry. And that way you get layers of fur and complexity. And I'll show you that later on as we get into our own projects. As I mentioned, the black ampersand ink. Oh, the other thing I use is I cut up egg cartons. Here we go. Cut egg cartons in half so that I can use them to put out my ink. So I have a little tiny drop of ink in each one. Is there another question while
Yeah,
I'm
2
doing
more
this?
questions. Is scratchboard different than clayboard?
Scratchboard already has the black on it. Is scratchboard different from clayboard? Here's a piece of clayboard that I just was using for playing around. It's the same thing. It's what is it? I forgot the word.
Masonite?
Masonite, thank you. And it's white clay baked on it, and that's clayboard, period. Okay. And then you can ink on it. Look how fun this is. This is just a black ink and a little bit of white chipped out, and boom, you got a choya. So you can do some pretty neat things with clayboard. The problem with clayboard is that you have to put your underlying colors on a little bit darker. When you're working with scratchboard, everything's black and it's all set for you. But when you're working with clayboard, you have to kind of compensate for the fact that you're going to be scratching out of it, so it's going to look a little bit lighter when you're done. So you want to start with a little darker undertone. That's a little more actually advanced. Anyway, back to color. So I'll use Clayboard actually here. So here's black ampersand ink. I'm going to water it down just a little tiny bit. You can see there's a slight brown tint to it. So if you're using it over here, so if you're using it to cover up a large area near Clayboard, it's going to look a little browner than the background. So you can compensate for that with just a little drop of blue that will kick it back into the black range. Whoops, a little too much. So back and forth until you get the match you want.
I have a question. Are watercolors fine to use for your color, or are there adverse effects?
You can use watercolor for your color. The ampersand inks are permanent inks, so once they dry, you can glaze over them and you don't have to worry about picking up any of the color underneath. If you use watercolor, it just sits on the top, and of course it's watercolor. If you get it wet again, it's going to move, so you have to be very, very careful about layering colors if you use watercolor. But if you're comfortable with that and you're comfortable mixing your colors and you get your color right the first time, that's great. You can use anything to color scratchboard. You can use colored pencil, pastel. I've never used pastel, so I couldn't help you with that. Rick Wheeler, he's a teacher at the Desert Museum, is teaching classes on how to glaze scratchboard with oil colors, oils, and they're kind of interesting. I don't know, maybe I'll get into that. Said it with a...
Two more questions.
Yeah.
What do you glaze with?
Glazing is just going over with another layer of color. So you glaze with whatever color you're using.
And what tool did you use for the long whiskers?
The long whiskers was, it was a tattoo needle. It was a tattoo needle that, let's see. Have any plain ones? No, I don't have any plain ones. It's a tattoo needle. Where are we? And I cut off the end of it and I put it in just a vice grip. So that's how it worked. You have to get it right to get it scratching. There it goes. There's one other tool. I don't even know if I want to mention it.
I think the glaze question may have been asking what do you finish your product, the whole piece with? Use
Was that
something
the
would
question?
cover up the shine when you...
Oh, the glaze? Oh, that's varnishing when you're really done. Yeah, there's a varnish at the end. And I'll get into that when we get to the end. I have a little exercise that I hope I didn't scare you off with when I emailed it last night. For you to actually start using the tools and getting a little bit of control with them. I sent you a value scale, and like here we go. This is good enough for a value scale. You know, I just wanted you to get something that goes from light to dark and kind of get some values in between. If you want, you can draw a rectangle with the pencil right on your board and make one end totally white, scratch out all the black off, and leave one end black, and then see how good a gradation you can get in between. That'll teach you a little bit of how to control your values. If you're brave enough, you can try the round one. Here's my little round one. You know, it doesn't have to be fancy. What it does is basically it's something to teach control of your tools. It's hard to get a round edge in scratchboard, so that's something you might want to work on. Excuse me. So, you guys ready to go to it? Got any questions? Ready to get started? Okay. Grab your scratch board, and let's get going on either a value study. Well, they're both value studies because value does all the work. Color takes the credit. So if you get good value contrast in your underlying composition, then you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to have an eye-pleasing work that'll grab people. So let's take a piece of board and get started. I will try to keep some chatter up while you're all working. Let's see. Your toolkits came with steel wool. I don't even have it. Nope, I don't even have it. I find it very frustrating. You have to like rub really, really hard and really long to get a little bit done. Sandpaper is another way to get some a big area cleared of ink. With sandpaper, you can rip off a tiny little piece and wrap it around the tip of your finger, and then you have a little more control over areas, little tiny areas that you might want to take a little scratch out. That's a good way to cheat on your value study too. Just run sandpaper up and down your board until it's darker on one side and lighter on the other side, and you'll get infinitesimal amounts of gray shade in between. Pardon me, I'm not used to talking that much. This is hard for an introvert. Introverts can do very well socially, it's just that it's very draining. Takes a lot of energy. Here's some other ampersand colors. Oops. Put a bit more. They're very vivid colors. Yeah, I don't think you can get that dark a blue and that deep a blue right away with this watercolor. But I don't know, maybe cobalt right out of the tube. And the green is a little bit strange. It's like a lime green. It's a nice green, kind of like a sap green in watercolor. If you really want to experiment with the colors, there are a couple things you can do. You can buy some clay board and just play with that. Or you can just take a piece of scratch board and take all the ink off with Mr. Clean or with rubbing alcohol. What else didn't I do here? Well, brown is brown. Geez, I bought these inks. Oh my God. What year is it, 2020? I must have bought these inks in 2010, and I'm just now starting to run out of black. I ordered, you can buy just black ink from Ampersand. But any permanent black ink actually will do. It's just the Ampersand ink is a little bit closer to the color of the board because the same company makes it. How you doing? Does that ding ding mean somebody joining or?
Yeah.
It's tough. I'm used to usually hearing all these little scratches and things as people are working. So the quiet is just a little bit unnerving.
Look, we can talk, Judy, if you want.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
Is that an acrylic ink, those inks? Those ampersands?
No, I don't think so. I think they're permanent ink. These for painting, calligraphy, airbrush, and technical pens.
I have a hard time getting getting consistent pattern out of the fiberglass tool. So it gets real spotty or scratchy for me. I can't get a real even pattern.
Oh, because
Really what I'm trying to say is I get a pattern instead of a uniform removal.
let's see. Are you scratching hard enough? You think?
Try harder. See, my little moon gets like little dimple pattern, which I guess is not bad for a moon, but I can't get it any more even than that. I get these little
Stars.
Oh.
Maybe it's the and brush the ink off and then scratch over it. You have to work at some of this stuff to get all the ink off. And you have to brush it frequently because the ink will go back and backfill on some of the stuff you've already scratched out. Getting a little bit ahead of myself, one of the last things you do before you're ready to varnish your piece is you take your X-Acto knife and go and scratch over the whitest whites just a little bit to bring them up again. Because inevitably, as you work, you're going to get black ink all over things, no matter how much you try, even by brushing, even by brushing it out of the way. Things that you scratch will pick up some ink and dull down. Did that help a
Your
little?
tool is way better than mine. You have to scratch more. Mine starts lifting really fast, and so you can get, and yours takes a long time, so you can get it more even. Your tool is way better.
We'll change the brush on yours after class.
Yeah.
Yeah, on these microfiber tools, you can buy replacement microfiber sticks, I guess. I don't know what they're called. Here's what the replacement looks like for the skinny one. They come in a pack like this. And these are the replacements. Yikes. For the fatter ones. Yeah, I go through these tools like water, actually.
So what happens if you just take those inks and, you know, you got a bunch of scratches and you just color right over the top of all the black stuff?
Say that again, I didn't
So
understand
say,
it.
say you've got, you know, your scratching done and you just want to ink, or just, you know, ink right over the top of everything. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah. I see, so you want to put like a wash over
Yeah,
things?
like if
Okay.
you want to color your animal, does the ink show up where the black is?
The ink will not show up where the black is.
Or? Okay,
You have to scratch in order for the ink to show up.
okay.
But if you've got a bunch of scratches, a shape, yeah. My tool's laying down on me. There it goes. It was stuck out too long, so I didn't have enough tension in it. Yeah, see, that's what scratching is supposed to sound like. When you're in a class with 10 people doing this, it gets pretty noisy. Okay, so if I have an area that I want to kick back a little bit, I can mix up ink washes in various shades. And just, I use a separate piece to dilute it to where I want, and then I can just wash over it. And that'll kick back that little area. This might make more sense when we're actually working on a thing, an animal or a plant or a mountain or something where you can see the effects. So we're gonna go till 10 and then take another quick break, and then we'll get into our project. I'll show you how to transfer an image, and we'll get going. So right now you're still working on, does anybody have any thing they want to show us? That, nope, I see people have disappeared again.
Ink down something. There's a value scale.
Okay. There we go. I see lights to darks and grays in between. That's cool. Okay. Anybody brave enough to try the circle? The sphere? Try to get some three-dimension, I can't say that word. Make it look three-dimensional with your shading. The cheater way to do that would be to scratch a whole circle white and then just use an ink wash to gradually fade it to black. That would be one way to do it. I've kind of got a little bit of that going here. All right, what a mess. Let's see. Here's one other cool little tool that I use. This is a soap dish that they sell at Bed Bath & Beyond, and it's good organizer for your brushes. Keeps them from rolling off the table. Let's see, you can't see that. Bring them over here. So yeah, if you have like 3 or 4 brushes that you use all the time, it keeps them in one place. Okay, we're gonna call another short break, and then you can keep scratching if you want. And then I'm gonna show you how to set up your project, your picture, for actually getting going and working on it. All right.